You ever have someone touch you, and for a second you freeze, not because you're uncomfortable, but because you felt something in that touch, something more than just friendliness. It's subtle, sometimes almost invisible, but it sends a jolt through your body, and your mind starts asking, did they mean something by that? Or am I imagining it? This is where it gets interesting, because the body speaks in ways the mouth never dares to. And when someone wants more than just friendship, when they're trying to signal desire, longing, even the hope of taking things to the next level, the signs are right there, in the way they touch you, but not in the obvious ways you might think. And tonight, we're diving deep into it, not with some trashy breakdown or list of pickup tricks, but a real, raw understanding of how human desire hides in plain sight, how we flirt not just with our eyes or words, but with the skin, the fingertips, the grazing contact that says everything our mouths won't. So sit back, because once you see these touches, you won't unsee them. Let me take you into a story. I had a friend, let's call her Jenna. We met through mutual circles, nothing too wild. But over time, things shifted. I started noticing how she touched me, not constantly, just at these specific moments, like when she laughed and her hand stayed a beat too long on my arm, or when she leaned in closer than necessary, brushing my side with hers, acting like it was casual, but it wasn't casual. See, it's never just about the touch. It's about the timing, the intensity, the follow-up glance. When someone touches you with intention, it's not about physical contact, it's about emotional suggestion. They're creating this unspoken invitation, sometimes even a challenge. I started paying attention, not just to her, but to others too. And that's when it hit me. Our bodies have a secret language. We all use it, but most people are totally blind to it. In psychology, there's this thing called proxemics, how we use space to communicate. There's a personal zone, a social zone, an intimate zone. Most people respect those zones unconsciously, but when someone starts slipping into your intimate space without apology, there's a reason. Touch isn't random, it's strategic. And when someone's attracted to you, when they're physically and emotionally drawn to you, they'll find excuses to close that gap, but they won't come out and say it. They'll use touch to test the waters, to see how you respond. Hand on your back when you walk through a door, fingers brushing yours when passing a drink, a nudge that lingers, a leg that bumps yours under the table and doesn't pull away immediately. This isn't about being sleazy, it's about being human. And whether we admit it or not, we all crave that closeness. But we also fear rejection. So we touch, softly, slowly, seductively, testing the line without crossing it until someone gives the green light. There was this night, I was out late with a girl I'd been seeing casually. It wasn't anything official, but there was this moment walking back to her car where everything changed. She laughed at something dumb I said, and without thinking she reached over and tugged lightly at my jacket. Not forceful, not dramatic, just a soft pull, and then her hand stayed there, fingertips barely on my chest. It was tiny, but it stopped me cold. That single touch carried something unspoken, a message that skipped past words and logic. She didn't need to explain, I already knew. She was inviting something more, but she was letting me make the next move. And that's the secret. The most intimate touches don't push. They open the door, silently, gently but deliberately. The truth is, we're starved for connection in this world. And when someone finally starts sending signals, not through apps or text messages, but with their body, you feel it, deeply. It's in the way they lean in while talking, closing the distance until you can feel their breath on your neck. It's the way their knee brushes yours, and instead of pulling away, they let it stay there like it's completely natural. You'll notice their touches become more frequent, but never aggressive. a swipe of your sleeve to fix something, a playful shove that turns into a moment where the space between you vanishes. Even the act of helping you fix a collar or brush lint off your shoulder, it's not really about the lint, is it? It's about permission, about seeing how close they can get before you stop them or pull them closer. So why don't people just say what they want? Because saying, "I want to be close to you," makes us vulnerable, but touching is safer. It can be brushed off if the feeling isn't mutual. "Oh, I didn't mean anything by it." But if the touch is welcomed, that's when things heat up. Touch is the safest risk we can take when desire is unspoken. Think about it. No one's going to outright say, "I want to sleep with you," in the early stages. It's too bold, too risky. So we speak through our hands, our positioning, the slowness of a touch that should have been quick. And when someone starts doing this more frequently, more intimately, they're telling you something loud and clear. But I want to be clear, this isn't about manipulation or games. It's about recognizing when someone is genuinely drawn to you, when they're struggling with that delicious tension between restraint and attraction. Some touches are accidental, but the ones that matter, you feel them. They're electric. They interrupt your train of thought. They make you remember that moment hours or even days later. There's honesty in that kind of touch, because our bodies can't fake what we really want, not forever. Let's break this down a little. For women, those touches might be subtle but precise. A hand on your chest as she says goodbye, brushing hair behind her ear while locking eyes with you. Even resting her head on your shoulder without asking, it all says something. For men, it might show up in protective gestures, guiding her through a crowd with a hand on her lower back, standing closer than necessary, touching her arm when making a point. But regardless of gender, the key is consistency. If someone keeps finding reasons to touch you and it's not happening with others around them, there's a message in that pattern. And it's not just friendly. What might surprise you is where these touches show up. Sometimes it's not where you expect. Behind the knee, the lower back, the wrist, these are intimate zones. Touching them is a choice, not an accident. Even grazing the fingers during a handshake or holding on a beat longer, those aren't mistakes. They're signals. They're testing for permission. And when the touch is returned, when you start mirroring it, that's when everything changes. The invisible wall breaks, and both people know. The moment that energy shifts, you'll feel it. The conversation gets quieter. The smiles turn into stares. The touches become slower, more meaningful. Time seems to stretch. Every small contact feels magnified. And in that silence, that's where the decision gets made. Will you lean in or will you let it pass? Because those touches, they don't lie. They don't care about social rules or logic. They just tell the truth. Your mouth is too scared to speak. The most powerful moments happen without words. They happen when a touch becomes a question. When it lingers just long enough to change everything, when the air between two people crackles because the barrier is starting to fall. This is the moment where attraction turns into desire, and you both know, even if you say nothing. So next, time someone touches you, don't just ask, "Was that friendly?" Ask yourself how it made you feel. Ask if it happened more than once. Ask if there's a rhythm to it. Because if someone is touching you often, subtly, meaningfully, they're not just being nice. They're telling you, in the only way they feel safe enough to say it, "I want to be closer," physically, emotionally, intimately. You just have to be still enough to notice. Because when touch becomes the language of desire, the silence between you is louder than any words. And once you learn how to read it, you'll never miss the signs again.